Hollywood Scriptwriter Magazine is a trade publication that profiles screenwriters, producers, and directors. We let you into their lives where they tell you how they made their mark in one of the toughest industries of Hollywood, the big screen. Subscribe today at hollywoodscriptwriter.com. Hello, I'm Angela Cranon. With me in the studio today is Courtney LeMarco, an Emmy-winning producer of a A&E hit show, Hoarders, and executive producer of the upcoming film, Long Gone Heroes. Welcome. Thanks so much for being with us.
Thank you. Thank you.
Tell me a little bit about your background briefly.
Ooh, where do I start?
I know you're an entrepreneur as well, so add all that stuff in there.
I have my hand in a lot of things. I actually started in the culinary world. I used to be a chef.
Oh, okay.
And I was learning about advertising and video production while I was a chef. And that's kind of how I segued into advertisement and then into branded content and then into television. But yeah, I've got my hands in a lot of different pots right now.
Mm-hmm. So, but chef to executive producer.
I know.
Tell me that transition. They're both creative. They're both creative.
Yeah, it's all about being in the creative industries, right? I was a chef for about 12 years. I became a personal chef for a member of the Boeing family, the airplane folks. And but I've always been into media and content and things like that ever since I was very young, wanting to take pictures, photography. So my interest always lie in pushing myself in that direction. And so one day I bought a camera and I actually started making videos for local restaurants because it's the industry that I knew. And I was making videos for restaurants. And then I started working. I think one of my first clients was Amazon. They called me out of the blue one day to do an event, to shoot an event. And then things started progressing from there. And so I kind of put down my apron and started doing video full time and slowly kind of worked my way up to bigger and better clients. And then I started working with Nordstrom or Neiman Marcus, actually, which was interesting. And when I was shooting a project for Neiman Marcus, I met this individual by the name of Ken Downing. And I thought he would be perfect for television. He's actually been on Project Runway a few times. I didn't know that at the time. So I had put together a concept for a show. And then I pitched that. I got on LinkedIn. And I live in Seattle, so there's not many production companies up there, but there were a few. And I got on LinkedIn and I found a production company that was willing to let me come in and pitch my show. And that company was called Screaming Flea. I ended up taking over their production of Hoarders on season 10. They were going out of business for reasons that were internal with their company. And I ended up taking over the show and boom, here we are.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Now, you do Hoarders for the past how many years now?
We are just starting our 15th season.
Wow.
So we started season 10, so here we are.
Now, what is it like being a executive producer for a television show?
It's fast paced. It's a lot of, there's so many different facets to producing it. You got to manage a lot of schedules, a lot of time. Especially with a show like Hoarders, we're dealing with people who are in dire straits and they need to get their homes cleaned out and things like that. And they're having all kinds of personal issues and family issues. So you kind of have to wear a lot of hats, and it's not always creative. Sometimes there's a lot of you're emotionally invested in the project when you're dealing with a lot of these folks. And so there's never a dull moment at all. I mean, I can get a call at a moment's notice when we're dealing with someone who's under a lot of stress, and then we have to adjust the whole project because we want to make sure we're keeping these folks happy. So yeah, it's I'm always constantly learning, and I have an amazing team that's got my six. They've got all corners covered. So we do a pretty good job of delivering to A&E, and it's just quite a learning experience. It's very exciting though.
Mm-hmm. Now you're dipping into, or maybe have for a while, into the film industry. Now, how long have you been doing that? And something upcoming, the Long Gone Heroes?
So yeah, Long Gone Heroes is one project that I'm working on. I just started. So my partner, Eric Bernard, he's a writer. Great writer. And we actually just finished I dipped my toe in film on his first project, or one of his first projects, called Free Dead or Alive, which is a great film that is in post. We're just wrapping up post-production. We shot that last year in Texas. I don't know if you remember there, but when Texas froze over and the power grid went down, we were in Texas filming, and we were supposed to be shooting a film that was based in South America, Central America, but Texas had snow all over the ground.
Oh my goodness.
And then we had, I mean, being a film producer is way more hectic than television. I'm gonna tell you that right now. So we had our entire crew, our cast, everything was just no water, no running water in the hotels, no electricity for I think 2.5, 3 days. So you can imagine when you've got 30, 40 people in one environment, under those circumstances, it can be quite testing. Mm-hmm. So that was probably one of the biggest learning experiences of my career to date. But yeah, that's kind of, that was my first film project. So, they threw everything, nature threw the whole book at me.
Right. So
my first one out. So I think I can handle pretty much anything now.
So you transition because of a friend, or you transition because you've been always wanting to get into film?
Yeah, I've always wanted to get into film. And Eric and I met. I used to work for another company in Seattle a long time ago. It's a production company, and I held an event there, kind of a networking event through, I think it was meetup.com or something. And Eric showed up, and he had some really good ideas, and we kind of clicked. So we've been really great friends. He's actually kind of like my brother now. We've been friends for a long time. He's always been a really good writer. So when he came up with the project for Free Dead or Alive, and I was able to pull the budget together, I was all in.
How were you able to pull the budget together? That's something that our readers and listeners and viewers always want to know, because that's one of the major challenges of many filmmakers.
I was able to use some of the success and some of the savings that I had put together from when I had my advertising agency into the film. And I was able to build really good relationship with a few of the banks that we work with. And so pulling the financing together wasn't that difficult.
Okay. So
and I didn't take any outside.
Relationship with banks.
That's very important. Yes, there's several banks that can help you co-finance projects. And it's all about, you can even take, if you have cash on hand, you can also put that cash into the bank and then leverage that with lines of credit and use the lines of credit to do portions of the film. And so you're never really stripped of the cash that you have on hold or that you have in the bank. So there's various ways to do it. I learned a lot of that from talking to a lot of my friends who do real estate transactions. So it's kind of not exactly the same, but there are some similarities in the process.
How is television producing different from, and maybe even similar to movie producing?
So the differences with television, I mean, if you're doing an independent film, you don't have a distributor set up. You don't have a studio backing you. So you really have to work well with investors, put your own money into it. You're taking the risk. On the television side, you've got a network that's financing the production of the project. So the way the cash flow works is completely different. And then you're also looking at, our show is a non-scripted, so it's a reality show. So we don't have we're shooting and then we're building the content after the fact. Whereas in film, you've got a script, everyone has done table reads, they know their lines. And so you're usually not going off the script in a film. But with reality TV, who knows what's going to happen, especially with a show like ours. You could be all over the place. Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Interesting. Now, tell us a little more about the film that you're working on, The Long Gone Heroes.
So Long Gone Heroes, that film with Santiago, one of my friends, Santiago, is behind that film. I can't really say too much about it just because of the paperwork, but it's an action film. Right now we are securing the locations to shoot. And it's going to be a pretty good blockbuster once we get everything wrapped up. But I can't give too much information out because, that's just how the industry is.
What's the goal for it?
The goal? The goal is to get to the next film. The goal is to finish it and move on and get to the next film. I mean, we want our projects to go out there and obviously please an audience. We want people to be happy. We want to, build stronger relationships with the actors and the people that we work with. But ultimately, film it's a long, like you're dredging with film. You're pushing. So for me, it's like we want to obviously recoup our investment, create a nice cinematic piece, but most importantly, get it done and get to the next project. Yeah.
And what's your plan as to when? And we're talking about this year, next year?
I'm expecting 2023. Yeah.
2023.
Yes. With right now, we are probably looking at, so with our film Free Dead or Alive, we're looking at distribution towards the end of this year. So your film is a long process. And then, we've had this pandemic that has totally put everything upside down, and we're still recovering from that. When it comes to the production schedules and things like that, that threw a lot of things off for everyone, obviously. But we're looking at 2023 for that project.
So being an independent filmmaker, what are some of the ups and downs of that? And sometimes people only want to be an independent filmmaker.
So when you're independent, if you don't have studio backing or giant pile of cash to rest on, you have to wear a lot of different hats. It's a lot of long nights, long days, long shoot days. It could be a lot more stressful because you're taking on more of the burden you're taking on all of the burden of production. So, that could be very challenging. And when you take the risk, you can lose big if you make a mistake. So, but at the same time, you have a lot of freedom because you're independent. So
and that's why I like to do this.
You know what I mean? You have a lot of freedom, and we know there's certain things that the studios don't do. For instance, they'll change artwork when it goes into a different territory because of all kinds of reasons. Well, I don't care about any of that when I do independent film. We're going to put out what we want to put out, period. Right. And that's the benefit to being independent, is we don't have to be held to the constraint of a studio, which may make decisions that we don't feel is in our best interest as creators. So that's very important.
Now, but that's a big sacrifice, because at least with the studio, you have a better chance, and even possibly quicker chance, of getting it to the big screen, making a lot of money, etc. Is it worth the risk?
It depends on the project. It all depends on the project, the relationship with the studio, the relationship that you have, with the team that's producing it. It all depends. You have to weigh those options very carefully. And if you're willing to part, and you have to think about your attachment to the project too, right? Because some people can be in a project and say, listen, we want to do this, get it done. And like I said earlier, move on to the next project. And if you're willing to let a studio take control, then there's nothing wrong with that. It's perfectly fine. But if it's a story that's true to your heart, or something that you've experienced personally, something you've gone through while you were coming up, you kind of want to be able to tell your story the way you need to tell your story. So, it's give and take. And that freedom, you can't really put a price on that, really, You can't put a price on freedom.
Now, are your plans to get it to the big screen, to make millions? And if so, what's the next step? Do you have to eventually pitch it to the studios?
It depends. I mean, there's so many different routes now. It's the industry with all these streaming services and things like Netflix. The industry has changed so drastically over the past 10 years. I take it one project at a time. Some projects we will want to go the studio route. Some projects we purposefully will want to go independent. So it's all on a project by project basis. With the project that we have, Free Dead or Alive, that's definitely something that we did independently. And I'm glad we did it that way. And it was, we learned a lot in doing it that way, and we had the control. Long Gone Heroes, that may end up being a studio project.
Now, how do you make your money independently? Are you going to do independent filmmakers make millions and millions like the big screen?
Well, you have to have your distribution set up. If you have a good distributor, a distribution partner, you can recoup your money. It's going to take longer than if you work with the studio. But this isn't the type of thing that I invest in to make money, to make quick money. It's not, that's not the process, right? If you're looking to make a film and make money real fast, that's not going to work.
Not even fast. I mean, some people are making, films are bringing in 300 million, 300, all that,
Yeah, those are the studio films.
Yeah, right. But is that possible with an independent film?
Yes, if it's good enough and you have the right marketing, but you're going to spend a lot of money on marketing. Definitely. Yeah, anything is really possible. There's always an anomaly that can happen. But we don't go for that. That's not really what our target market is. And right now, I'm trying to stay in, like, budget wise, in between the 5 to 15 million production budget for the independent projects that we're doing. And those are really low budgets for Hollywood. As you know, I mean, Hollywood will spend 150 million on what they call a basic film. And I don't think a lot of that is really necessary all the time, but as technology gets better and the equipment gets better and the processing gets better, I don't think you have to go out there and spend $100 million to make a really great film.
And to even recoup your money.
And to recoup your money. I mean, Blumhouse is a perfect example. They did a lot of projects that were relatively lower budget, and they stuck with a certain style and a certain budget range and a certain genre. And they're very, very, very successful, and it's about quality content and the amount of content that they put out. So I think they're a great example.
Mm-hmm. Now, some of our viewers are wanting to know, as a producer, give me step to step, briefly as you can, what exactly would be a day as an executive producer or producer?
Ooh. See, are we talking about film or TV?
That's a good
combine them both.
Okay, divide them both, because it's different from being a director, right? Different from being a script writer. So give me a little bit of both. Briefly.
So-and-so happened. Really? Yes, we're going to need X amount of money to do this. All right.
And you're the man, huh? To get that done. Okay.
This is happening over here. What? We need this. Really? Right now? Okay. Let me get the checkbook.
Okay.
You know what I mean? It's a lot of
the orchestrator.
Yes, and it's like a switchboard operator, and then I have to deal. You're dealing with something happening on the catering side, and something you have to deal with all the problems on the project. Whereas, if you're a director, you're coming in and you're talking about the creative vision and everything. As a producer, you have to make sure everybody's taken care of, and there's nothing that's not left, that's not taken care of. So it's wearing a lot of hats. It's in a lot of ways, and I'm not trying to disparage anyone, but sometimes you can be a glorified babysitter, if you know what I mean. It's like a lot of
grown-ups,
a lot of listening, it's a lot of caring, and a lot of it's going to be okay. We'll get it done. Because, you got a lot of people working in situations and making creative content, and there's a lot of personalities that are involved and opinions that are involved with that. So you have to take all that in and deal with that and manage it at a top level and make sure everything's taken care of. And it can be very hectic, but that's why I live in Seattle. It's quiet. I go up to the mountains.
Not Hollywood, huh?
No, I don't live down in LA. Well, at least not yet. And I go up into the trees and the mountains and just listen to the stream.
Mm-hmm. What's next for you?
A lot. I'm focusing on a few other shows that we have in development. I'm focusing on a book, and I am launching a skincare and cosmetic brand. So I'm enjoying life, and I'm trying to build. I'm just really trying to build and create a legacy. And I want to get involved with more creative people and do bigger projects.
Mm-hmm. Now, what's interesting is because you're in so many different areas, and they're not all dealing with filmmaking, for skincare. That has nothing to do with, except for the people that need it, skincare, with the actors and things of that nature. As a chef, I mean, everything's in a different category. So my listeners may be thinking, well, how can you focus and be the best you can be at, for example, executive producer for television and or filmmaking? I mean, because some people can't juggle that, and some people are experts at juggling and putting things into various categories. Tell me about that.
I think that's just kind of how my brain works. I can't be just focused on one thing. And when I worked in a kitchen too, that's a perfect example. When I worked in the kitchen, I'm cooking, it's fast-paced environment, and I'm cooking very different dishes for tons of different tables, right? So I have to make sure, okay, I know the timing on my scallops over here. I know my timing on this over here. I know this time. So you have to have all those moving parts, even though it's just cooking, right? So that's kind of how my brain works in general. Once you know business is supply and demand. You have a product, whether it's television or skincare, and you have consumers or an audience, right? So once you know the process of business, then it's just about applying that process to things that you're passionate about and things that other creative things. So I don't really think that even though it seems like I may be going in multiple directions, it all seems very similar to me. And that's just kind of how my brain works. I mean, we've got a very wealthy man who builds electric cars and rocket ships and all kinds of things, right?
Yeah.
So I think that's just the way my brain works. And if it wasn't that way, I would get bored really fast and I would feel like I'm not being productive. And also, I have an amazing group of people that I work with, an amazing team. And like I said, we all watch out for each other and we all work to make each other better at what we do. And that's really an exciting part of the entire process. So without that, I think it'd be a little bit more difficult, but you have to surround yourself with good people who understand the vision and who share the vision and can help pursue that vision and bring it to reality.
Mm-hmm. That makes sense, because as a chef, you're not just cooking burgers all day. First of all, chefs don't cook burgers, but, gourmet foods, one dish, the whole restaurant, one dish. So that was a very good example because, and I'm sure that's exactly how your brain works because that's what you've been used to. So, wow, that's wonderful. All right. Well, thank you so much for being in the studio with us. Appreciate your time and your knowledge and information. And we wish you the best for every project that you're working on and your entrepreneurship. Do you you own a business? Do you still own a finance business?
Oh, yeah. I'm heavily into it.
Okay.
Yeah. I mean, if you look up LeMarcoBrands.com, there's the link to my parent company, and all my other subsidiaries are under that. But yeah, and I'm looking for other people to work with, other projects. So definitely.
Okay, well, great. Thank you so much for being with us today. We were here with Courtney LeMarco, and I'm Angela Cranon with Hollywood Scriptwriter Magazine. Make it a great day. Okay, cool.
Perfect.
How are you? How'd that go for you?
That went well. That went really well.
Hollywood Scriptwriter Magazine is a trade publication that profiles screenwriters, producers, and directors. We let you into their lives where they tell you how they made their mark in one of the toughest industries of Hollywood, the big screen. Subscribe today at HollywoodScriptwriter.com.